Another interesting day of clouds. Well, actually, just morning here in the San Luis Valley. It was just a circular little disc here. It's kind of been muddled up a little bit. Then another chemtrail spreading into what looks like altocumulus cloud, but it was obviously, well, apparently a chemtrail. And then another one's come on in here together. And I was just seeing one passing through this other altocumulus deck here, coming up this way, so it'll pop out of the clouds here very shortly. There it is. There it is. See, so it missed this gap here. Trail did not stick. So that's a United or US Air paint scheme, usually United. Maybe we can. That's the full wingspan puppy. Full wingspan. Look at that color. Look at that color. That is so not a contrail. So not a contrail. You know, I don't know how much more apparent it has to be, but apparently we're gonna have to smack people upside the head with this so they'll see it. But he's a relatively moisture-rich environment. I mean, not terribly so. We're on the edge of this. Let me get adjusted here. I can zoom back in. Ooh. See, look at this trail. Back into the artificial lenticular. These winds are just far, far too light for these lenticulars. A little bit over Challenger Peak here, and a much broader span. But I'm gonna swing the time lapse around and look to the east, because what's happening to the west is not nearly as interesting as this activity. Now I'm hearing another jet. This one sounds big. Where are you, puppy? Oh, there he is. There he is. See, he's not trailing. Maybe southwest. 737. And he's shuttling off to go to work, or he's doing what he does. See one plane not in it much higher, even that big fat trail, and then this one coming on underneath it. Like I've said before, I wonder what these airlines were put through to surrender their paint schemes and honestly their reputations to do this. Because this is probably not a doing of their own will. This is not of their own will. You can see how this trail is spread out pretty profoundly. There's the plane moving up it. He's not trailing. Did I lose it? Looks like I lost it. There he is. Blue top, red wings, or red engines. So he's low. That's Delta. That's Delta. But look at this. Look at this incredibly sharp edge. And another one here. And then we have the Cirrus. Just kind of, there's this edge tearing. I've got the camera now facing off to the east. So I'm going to capture this movement. fascinating. A bit of a sundog trying to come together here. He's still up there, he's still not trailing. What I was interested in were these clouds and how the cirrus or the ice crystals are just kind of weeping out of them. Little many little what they call fall streak clouds, where you can have a hole punched in a cloud and the ice crystals, just kind of trail out from below them. And they used to, well, conventional wisdom says that it's where a cloud passes through the layer of clouds, or a plane passes through the layer of the clouds, and then that creates a hole, and then the ice crystals condense from that. That certainly wouldn't explain this behavior, where we see it condensing out of essentially blue skies. And so that explanation falls flat on its face. We've got more here. More here. And now our edges are becoming even more pronounced. And a very apparent trail. Very apparent. It's almost like we have a wave crest right in through here. So this wave is rolling along. And then we have a peak. And then it disturbs the cloud, and we ended up with just a little bit of ice crystals on this side versus this side. Anyway, looks like it's going to be an interesting day. Models had us in a pretty high chance for some rain this afternoon, or thunderheads, so we'll see. You can see the little wave peaks there, rolling along these lenticulars. Let me just iris down so we can pull out some detail there. You can begin to see those waves in there. Not even then that there's kind of holes in there. Look at those. Kind of cool. Kind of cool. Back out. Got another fresh trail in here. Kept expecting him to pop out here shortly, but I haven't seen him re-emerge into the clearer skies just yet. But notice how we have such a different behavior in this cirrus. And we come into this area, and then we add all kinds of different twists. And then overhead, we almost get these circular cirrus, and then they turn into much smaller shapes or formations. Almost have a little cube-like thing right in there. You hear the jets overhead? Is they're just constantly doing this back and forth action. Very unusual, or changes in the cirrus cloud. There's the plane I was looking for. Let's see which direction he's going. There's the little trail. Oh, he's headed towards the west, so he's moving away from me. There he goes. So, not going to be able to capture him. Oh, maybe. Let's give it a shot. See if we just can at least identify his paint scheme. It's Allegiant. But it's just a portion of a trail. Just a little bit of a segment. Didn't last the whole sky, just one mark. Just a mark. You know, and the trails must have been more continuous in the past. And now he's actually below this cloud. You see the trails in front of it. As he's below that cloud. So he's low, probably in the low 20,000 foot range. Kind of watching these lenticular clouds forming just off the mountain peak. And then a few cumulus. This one's kind of odd. See how it has two knots on either side. And then this little shield haze on top of it. So there's something, usually when things are rotating, that's when I'm noticing these little waves. It's a little jet now. Sometimes these little guys are the ones that leave the pink trails. But they're employing more and more of these business jets. They're cheaper to operate, have a range just as long or as far, an ability to stay airborne for as long as the 737s or the commercial jets. And then people don't usually consider them to be a part of the program. And so it's like, you can see these little jets passing overhead, and you don't think twice about them, you give them a pass. But they shouldn't be. Because you can see that these planes display an intent as to their path in relationship to the previous trail or other meteorological phenomena. They're in it just as much as the big planes. There's kind of the shark fin shapes that tell us the waves are moving this way. In fact, you can see their slope as they just drive along this, and then you've got air coming up this way. And so it's that shear that creates this roll as you have this thing powering it, and then it tumbles under. This was the trail that happened off to the west. There was that, what looked like it was painted up like a Allegiant, and I won't know for sure until I get this on the big screen. But persistent trail. It was this right here. It was kind of like the mark. And it went through the gap of these clouds, and then came out of this. And you get more of these pseudo false streak cirrus clouds. Comes another dandy. See, he's leaving this segmented trail. Who is he? Who are you with? Lost his markings. Look at this. He's right at the cloud layer. You can see because the shadow is so thin, or so close to the clouds below. I've lost him. And there's another plane. I mean, look at how close the shadow is. It's just, he's flying essentially right through these clouds, right at cloud level. So he's there to seed him, to mark him, but he's right there. And here's the other one coming the other way. It could be Continental United. No, it looks like blue trail or blue or red engines. But he's definitely not trailing. Here's that one from earlier. It's off to the northwest. Look at this puppy. And we still have our wave action on top of the lenticulars. Farther off to the south. Let's see if we can't pick him up. So much easier to see on the big screen afterwards. But I'm going to back out. And you can see what's at the top, this cloud, and then they whisk back and around. So it's like we have a front that is coming this way towards us, and then the ice crystals are drawn like a drape down into the west. Look at these. You know, for a true lenticular, you wouldn't see these peaks. You wouldn't see this activity off the top. You just wouldn't. Let's expose you down a touch so we can see the texture on the top of what should be smooth clouds, but it's not. And what I've always noticed are these holes. You see this gap there, one here. Actually, there's several inside this hole there. And so these holes are important. Look at that puppy right there. So there's just something unusual going on. I really wish we could get some pilots to stand up. Anonymously is fine, but write us a missive. Share us some pictures. You know, there's a way to do this, to get your story out there. But these pilots must have been really browbeaten so they don't lose, retirements. I mean, they've got good salaries. They have great responsibility for the lives of the passengers. But, you know, there's a time to do the right thing. There's a time to do the right thing. All right, we're back to the south. So this trail off to the distance. So after our trails formed like this, there's something on the south side, or this other side of the trail, that's happening versus this north side. These trails are boundaries, they're borders, and you can see this cloud here. It's beginning to take shape on the northern side of this trail. And that has begun, you know, within 2 or 3 minutes of this trail being laid down. And so the trails come, the clouds form. The trails come, the clouds dissipate. The trails are boundaries that separate energies in the atmosphere. So this is even coming into shape. So we'll watch this over the next little while to see what happens. And then overhead, this guy's still, you see there's this little feature here that they're interested in, then it ends. Just had another little jet, one of those little business jets, going through the cirrus deck. You can see how they're just kind of threading the trails through these Fall Street clouds. This one is right on the top of it. Right over the top of this one. Gap. So they're just right, you know, just threading through this. Now when we back out, you can see how they go from little clouds to big, majestic feathers. Big feathers. And just like the whole formation of the cloud is changing, and now we're seeing some of these clouds beginning to gather at the ends of the feathers. It's, you know, it's kind of pretty if it weren't so, you know, creepy in an unnatural way. I just have got to wonder how old this is. Look at the holes here. This whole formation, this is electrical. There's no way this is thermodynamic. So there's something that's got to be taught soon in meteorology school to explain for what's happening in these clouds. You know, cool fall streak. The top here. And then this cirrus coming out of this dark hole that I'm centering on right here. And then the cirrus kind of falls out of it. Let's check on our lenticulars. Pretty much falling apart. The peak is about 14.1. So that's where our condensation level is. It's right at about 14,000 feet. You can see these clouds. These are still forming, come together at the end of these feather-like cirrus. Holes. High clouds have kind of faded away. We're left with cumulus. Let's see if we can figure out what this is. You see that other one pass right by it? I haven't seen that before. In the clouds, huh? There he goes. Now I'm not going to get him again. Pop through here briefly. Or not. Yeah, I'm not going to get him again. Curious. There's another one real quick. Go Allegiant. Low and slow. You only fly from Fort Collins to Vegas, but he's not in that path. Not in that path. And then another one. Something's going on. Wonder if we're going to have some thunderstorms developing here shortly. Kind of thinking that's what's trying to come together. Some thunderheads. So we got a little thunder. Little thunder out of this activity after the planes came through. Not lots. Got a little shower popped up. Still, the edges of this are all kind of murky. Not the way thunderheads and apples used to look very differently these days. Look very different. And out of the back of this thing, we've got the ice crystals dripping. It's just a little odd. This whole thing is strange. The plane, they're just constant. In and around these thunderheads, they're just constant, constant, constant. Not leaving trails, but they're low and slow. So I think there's just a lot of this etheric engineering that happens at these lower elevations, or at these lower altitudes. Back out, that thunderhead is now passed off to the east. Still, all this is different than it used to be. So he's just passed through this storm, this minor storm, which was putting down quite a bit more rain than it is now. Now it's essentially just dried up. Got to deal with these planes. Got to deal with these planes, and we might actually get our weather back. Here's another one. See him? Here we go. Where there's the storms, there are the plains. I'd like to have been in around Isaac. See how they tweaked that hurricane. Because we know they tweak the weather. They're constantly tweaking the weather. Right there it is. I'd like to see his tail. Looks like Continental United. Again, there's nowhere for him to be going on this direction. Nowhere. At this altitude, at this direction, it's just not an appropriate flight path. I'm even hearing another plane. It's gonna pop behind the thunderhead here. You can see what this turbulence could often be called modest, but it's not quite that. There's just this churning, this constant churning, and it's actually more like a spiral when you look at it in the time lapse. And then it's kind of blowing over the tops of the thunderheads. So instead of these anvil heads having one overshooting top, we're seeing all this churning. And then it's also manifest below in this turbulence. Step out of the way. You can see what would have been a rainstorm in the west. You can see the Virga now reaching to the south. There's just not much reaching the ground. Not much at all. We'll get the gusty winds, the cooler air. But as far as getting precip, it just isn't happening. So the models are generating the rainfall, the moisture's here, the vorticity's here, all the ingredients are here. But we can see how the storm has kind of been split. We just have two forces coming together. We should have two little rain down shafts, but it's just not reaching the ground. A little thunder shower off to the west. See it there? A little shower happening here. More interestingly is this kind of like center seam that's happening right there. And we have the spokes branching off of it. And notice on this side, we have texture up in these holes. This side is smooth. Even though you can see the ribbing action. So we look at satellite imagery, we see holes, and it is around these holes where the thunderheads are forming. It's like a pretty good shower out there. Or certainly do. Again, ribs. Let's see this structure on just about every scale. And on one side you've got cloud definition, one side you don't. Funny thing is it's advancing this way. Well, the day's winding down. Not a whole lot left happening. After the threat of a few showers, it's netted no more than a hundredth or two over the wettest of locations and a trace everywhere else, and by far the majority of the region, probably 80%, with nothing at all. This is the extent of the shower that's left, and it's got a little rain shaft right in here. But I mean, the structure is so effed up, it's unreal. It's just, there's just nothing right about this. You've got these holes in here, here, and here, and it doesn't look right. It just doesn't look like a typical thunderhead. So it's just this this jumbled mess with a bit of a rain shaft coming out of it as it continues to just disintegrate in place. So I was kind of waiting to see if we had any planes coming out over this evening, but it looks like it's gotten rather quiet. I mean, certainly there's no need for them. There's nothing happening. I don't really have a clear view of the west, and there's probably some activity off in that direction. But nonetheless, if everything's in a state of decay, there's no reason to spend the money to keep flights out and investigating that kind of activity. So that ends the 3rd of September, 2012, in the San Luis Valley in southern Colorado. Keep looking up.